Morning, guys. So here is my Lightroom ingestion process. I do things a little bit differently. I like to work from folders on the desktop rather than import from SD card, and I'm hoping to illustrate that, or at least illustrate why I do that rather than import from SD card. In principle, importing from the SD card means that you can't import and delete or cut or move, so to speak. It will only import a copy, which just means one extra layer of PT to do. It means I have to deal with a different file system, and I'd rather just deal with as few file systems as possible. The other big reason is that I have a very organized folder structure. I have a very specific way that I work, and I would rather be able to see my local files and my remote files. These files are on an external server connected over Thunderbolt. I'd rather be able to work on my local drive on my SSD, which is much, much faster. And once I'm done, then move my images over to my remote folder where I store them, because as you can see, I have 21,000 photographs in this one catalog alone. So it's a more optimized workflow, especially for events photography, where I'm bringing in 1,200 photos a week. So how I'd start is I separate my images into RAWs and into JPEGs. I don't let Lightroom do any of that for me, because Lightroom doesn't create a separate folder structure. It mixes your RAWs and your JPEGs together, and depending on what option you've got set here, treat JPEGs next to RAW files as separate photos, it will actually conceal the JPEG image inside Lightroom. I understand the reason they're doing that, but it's dumb. It's not intuitive. So I'm a JPEG shooter. The images I shoot, I'll almost always use the JPEG. I just expose correctly and I set my color corrections in camera, and I'll do very minor edits to my images in Lightroom. If I find that I've totally balked a JPEG image, then I'll bring the raw image in after the fact to try and recover what I had in my mind's eye, but I try to get my shots right in camera. So to import into Lightroom, 2 folders on the desktop, bring in my JPEGs only by dragging onto the Lightroom icon. It's the quickest way to get the wizard kicked off. It selected the 3 images automatically. I build standard previews, not one-to-ones. I know there's a big vibe right now about build one-to-one previews. They're so amazing. It's going to chow up your hard drive space. And I don't pixel peep either. If the image looks sharp from a distance, it's fine. I don't zoom in, because then you start artificially sharpening and doing all sorts of funny things, and inevitably it's a battle between artificial sharpening and what looks natural. I trust my camera. I trust my ability to focus on my subject accurately. So standard previews and smart previews. Smart previews are what are going to really speed up your workflow, as long as you have set, I don't think it's here. Is it here? No, it's not here. It's in the normal catalog settings. If you've set performance to use smart previews instead of originals for image editing, that's going to make a big, big difference. You can have increased performance. It may display just decreased quality while editing. I haven't found that, but that's because I'm not zooming in one-to-one. Anyway, use smart previews. They edit much, much faster. So generate smart previews and standard previews. All right, let's bring those 3 in. Great. Now, watch what's happening treat this as Windows Explorer or as Macintosh Finder. Treat Lightroom as a file browser. So now I'm looking on my local hard disk into my JPEG folder, and I'm looking into my personal server into that folder structure. So while I'm working on my SSD drive, I'm able to go through these very quickly because I haven't zoomed in. If I zoom in now, it's going to generate, but I never do that, so that's why I don't generate one-to-one previews. Okay, so let's say I select, I rate these images. Actually, I'm quite happy with all 3, so I'll just leave them unrated for now. No, wait, for the exercise, let me reject something. So pretend this was 300 images. It's difficult to choose which one I don't like. I'm quite happy with all 3. Let's say I don't want that one, okay? So my rating system, I rate everything that I do want at least a 1 star. Let me just turn on the information view here. Do I have a star rating view? I don't think I do. Or is that in the toolbar? T for toolbar. There you go. So T for toolbar turns on your toolbar, and in your toolbar you can see your rating. So that I want rated as 0. So I think that's the one I'll throw away. And those are 1s. Okay, so 1 stars. I'm going to select my 2 1 stars. Let's say that was 200 of the photos, because we're doing, we're creating an analogy of 300 photos. Now, I take those photos into my catalog. So let's go to September, and I'm going to call this folder shots around the house. And I'm going to say include selected photos. Now those 2 images get sent over to a folder called shots around the house, and the rejected photos stay here on the desktop now, which means I can go and delete this folder, and I can remove the folder from Lightroom. And now I have these shots around the house in their own folder. Okay, so why did I do it this way? Because now I'm able to rename all of the images in this folder using the folder name. I've created a naming macro. I'll show you now. So at the moment, they are called Fuji 0002 and Fuji 0003. But if I select them both, you'll see the file name becomes mixed, and I select the editor. I've created a file naming macro that renames and sequences according to the folder name. So I want it renamed to shots around the house, 0002 and 0004, I think was the numbering. Let's click OK. Those files now are named with the folder directory name plus the sequence number. That way, if I'm ever just in a directory, I can actually see the title of the image, which is much easier for when a client wants to read out an image that they would like in a higher resolution. Paul, I'm looking for shots around the house 0003 is much easier than trying to find Fuji 997 taken on date XYZ, because I have multiple images with the exact same file name, just in different folder structures, which is just not very good for me. So guys, that's how I get my images into Lightroom. I drag onto the Lightroom icon. I go and I rate on my local drive. I'll even edit on my local drive. And when I'm done, then I'll put them into a final folder location and I'll rename them. For those of us who are archivists, so this image is, they're 10 megs each. That's far too large for 1,200 images that I need to archive for a client. So I will go and image optimize these, select them both, open with Image Optimize, which is a freeware application from the web. It's going to go from 9 megs to about 10% of that, right? There you go, less than 1 meg each. Those images are now 736K and 780K respectively. And the purists out there are freaking out right now going, holy cow, how much image detail did you lose? Well, install the application and test it. I challenge you to find enough discernible resolution difference in these images over the originals, color-wise, saturation-wise, clarity-wise, and resolution-wise, to not justify saving 90% of your hard disk space. So I'll image optimize, then we go back to the grid view. Lightroom will say, hey man, you've changed something about these images. Actually, it didn't this time because I changed an EXIF setting. Okay, I'm not going to go down that rabbit trail unless you guys want to know how to preserve EXIF in Image Optim, which is a totally different topic. But just as a final thing, let's say I wanted to work from the raw of this image. Let's say this image wasn't good enough to work from. And remember, this is unedited. I wouldn't edit this. I'm happy with this image. It's done, finished from camera. But let's say I wasn't happy with it. Then I would go into my raw folder. I would select the image that I'm not happy with. So that was 0003. And I would bring that raw file into Lightroom. Same method. Standard preview, smart preview, import. Now, once again, I'm working from my local disk. Go and edit this image. I've got to start all over again. So I don't like working from RAW. The camera does such a good job already. Let's just bump all of this up a little bit and see what we can get out of it. Exposure down a bit. Okay, let's say I was happy with that, which I am not. I would now take this image and now I would send it over to my network share. There you go. So now I have my two options. Don't know if you guys know this, you can push the letter N for survey. Survey will let you see them side by side. I'm still much happier with the JPEG from the camera. But that's it, guys. That's my workflow for ingesting into Lightroom. Folders on the desktop, drag onto the icon, import smart and standard previews, do all my editing and rating on the local hard disk, then pull them over into the folder that I create and then rename them using the macro that I've built. Either that blew your mind and really opened up your cataloging workflow, or that made you yawn and hate that you've spent your time watching this video. Either way, stay awesome, guys. Hope this was helpful to those who it was helpful for. Bye.